What's up, everybody, and welcome to One Man's Opinion. And today we are ranking all of the Friday the 13th movies. Some rules to keep in mind. Number one, if you hear any weird noises, my dog is in here, and he's not normally in here when I do this. But we had a dog outside earlier that he's not familiar with, and it kind of, you can hear him scratching right now. It kind of spooked him a little bit. He didn't like that too much, that other dog out there wandering around. And so he's being kind of whiny, and he wanted to be near me when I filmed today. So if you hear any background noise, it's probably him. Rule number two, Freddy vs. Jason will not be on this list because I don't think it's fair to include a movie that has another all-star character in it in a ranking where it's just Jason in solo outings all the way through. I love Freddy, and I think he would give him an unfair advantage over at least most of the movies on this list, especially since there's not really I don't think there's an amazing Friday the 13th movie. I think all of them have at least some small things that could have been done better, and some of them have some major issues. So no Freddy vs. Jason on this list, just the Jason solo outings, the first 10 plus the reboot is what we're covering today. The final rule is this is not a rating system, okay? When I do a review, I typically give them a 1 out of 100 or a 1 out of 99 to tell you how good the movie is. That's me as a fan who sits back and kind of analyzes the film and says, okay, here are the issues, here are the good parts, this is the rating I give it. This is my favorite film. So some of these might have gotten a good rating, but because of their lack of entertainment value or something along those lines, maybe the kills weren't my favorite or something, but something about it wasn't my favorite film, even though it might have got a high rating. So keep that in mind when I'm doing it. This is based on my opinion of which films are the best, the ones I enjoy watching the most, and I'll give you reasons as quickly as I can as to why those movies are. And having said that, no time for an intro on this one. We got to dive right in. We're going to try to move pretty quickly. That way this video isn't 30 minutes long. Let's get into it. Here we go. All right, coming in at number 11, the worst of the worst, the least favorite of all the Friday the 13th movies, we've got Jason Takes Manhattan coming in at 11. And guys, I hate this movie. I hate Jason Takes Manhattan. None of the others, it doesn't even matter who's ranked at number 10. From 11 to 10, there's a huge step up. I have so much more respect for the movie I have in the 10 slot than I do for Jason Takes Manhattan. This movie, it's long, it's boring, it's nonsensical. I hate how, I don't even like how Jason looks in this movie. I hate that he's like slimy and wet the whole time. I know he came out of the water at the beginning. Let him be a little slimy and wet at the beginning. That's fine. I know he goes for a swim in the middle. But look, I hate that slimy look that he has this whole movie. It's awful. I love Kane Hodder, and there are high points to the movie. I think Julius is a good character. I think his fight with Jason is really good. And I think his death is the highlight of the movie. I think when Jason punches his head off, that's the best part of the entire movie. The rest of the characters are not very good. I don't even care for our final girl very much. I hate everything that happens in the sewers. I hate little boy Jason popping up all over this movie. He never looks the same. His makeup is different from one scene to the next, and it just looks awful. It doesn't even look like the same kid most of the times. It looks like every time they brought kid Jason in, they just swapped him out for another child. At one point, he looks Asian. I don't know what's going on in this movie 99.9% of the time, and it doesn't even take place in Manhattan for the majority of the movie. It takes place on a boat, and it's just, the kills aren't good. The whole thing is just a stink fest, and it is my least favorite Friday the 13th movie. Okay, coming in at number 10, we have Part 5, A New Beginning. And I know what you're thinking. It's not just because it doesn't have Jason in it. There are other Friday the 13th movies with Jason absent. Number 9 and number 1 come to mind immediately. But that's not why. It's icing on the cake here that there's not Jason in this movie. Frankly, the cast and crew were given a lot of free rein by the director to sort of create their own characters, ad-lib their own lines, and kind of build their character how they wanted to. Often they would bring their own costumes, their own props. They kind of built their own character from the ground up. With that, you have a lot of improvised lines and things, and I think sometimes that works really well. Some of the characters come off really, really cool and unique. I love Ethel, who's just the craziest old woman. I love Reggie and Demon, his brother. Those guys those characters come off very unique. They come off very good. I like those characters a lot. Other characters I don't think come off so well. The other characters in this house are very forgettable. Most of them I don't care for at all. Tommy's okay. I like Tommy okay in this movie. He's not my favorite version of Tommy, but I understand what they were going for, and I actually don't mind the choices that were made with his character. I don't like the final girl, Pam. She is probably my least favorite final girl of any Friday the 13th movie ever. And so with this big, wide swing and a miss, it's not a very good recipe for a good movie. There are memorable characters here, but by and large, the majority of them, the decisions that are made to me are very questionable, and I don't really care for the story a whole lot. I do think it's a better effort at a whodunit than the first one, because at least you are introduced to the character that actually does the killing early on, so there is a little bit more of a whodunit vibe there, trying to piece it together if you want to go about it that way, but they didn't really even lean into that as much as I thought they should have. I don't know why they don't have the characters trying to figure it out as they go as well. I would love to see that sort of whodunit. I thought that that's how it should have been done in the first movie. I thought that's how it should have been done here as well, and it's not done well. After all that, you pile on some very forgettable kills. The MPA very much got a hold of this movie and cut out a lot of the blood. They cut out a lot of these kills are just off screen, and they just kind of show you what happened after. There's 2 decent kills. There's only 1 decent kill in this movie, and it's just not a very memorable film to me, and I think it's one that's going to be easily forgotten and probably at the bottom of most people's list. Coming in at number 9, we have Part 7, The New Blood. Now, I do respect Part 7 because at this point, we had gotten very bogged down in the Friday the 13th with all the cookie cutter movies, and it was always the same thing. And I know that's why 5 went the route it did, and 6 was even a little bit different with the reanimated Jason and trying to do new things. And I actually quite liked 6, but I understand why 7, they really wanted to take it in a completely different direction. I hate that they dropped off Tommy. I think Tommy is a really important character in the Friday franchise and someone I wish we saw more of after Part 6, then he just kind of disappears. There are things that are really good about Part 7. There are things that are really bad about Part 7. The worst thing is 3/4 of the movie is just boring. The first 3/4 of this movie is a slog, and most of the characters are very forgettable. They're not good characters at all. I do like our main character here. I like her mother, and I like the doctor, who I think is probably the best non-Jason antagonist in any of the films. I think he is the best bad guy that isn't wearing a hockey mask in all 11 movies. So there are things that are done well. Also love the main character's mother, Amanda. I love her hairdo. Her hairdo is amazing to me, and I just think it's the best hair. She gets the best hair in the series award. This movie also has my favorite Jason costume. I love the exposed back where you can see like the spine, and where Jason Takes Manhattan tried to have like a submerged Jason who came out of the water look and tried to make it work. Where that failed, they succeeded in 7. This rotted corpse of a Jason, but still that hulking presence is really, really awesome. It's also Kane Hodder's first appearance as Jason. And look, I love Kane Hodder, and I think he's probably the best part of this movie. Actually, not probably. He is my favorite part of this movie. The stunt work that he does is amazing, and that is the part of the movie that I want to praise. The back quarter of this movie, when you finally get Tina versus Jason. I believe the main character's name was Tina. When you finally get that face-off, it's really, really good. I love the stunts. I really don't mind the telepathic stuff. I know a lot of people don't like that aspect in their Friday the 13th movie, but let's be honest, with a zombie walking around as Jason Voorhees, these movies were headed in a supernatural direction already, and we turned a blind eye to it in 6. That's a lot of people's favorite movie. And so I don't know why we couldn't turn a blind eye to telekinetic powers in the 7th. I'm fine with that. I don't think it always works, especially in the beginning of the film. I don't think the acting is very good in a lot of this movie, and the teenage group is just completely forgettable. But the back quarter of this movie where you get Tina versus Jason, I think some of the stunts are amazing. Kane Hodder does like a 40-second fire stunt. I'm pretty sure it broke a world record at the time. And so that's really awesome. They blow up a house. They actually blow up a house. That's a real live house that they blow up. So when you see that in the movie, that actually happened. They did that. and it looks amazing. It looks fantastic on film. So there's some really awesome stunts. There's some really good costume designs in this film, and there are things that I enjoy about this movie, but I think the majority of the movie is kind of boring, and I think it's kind of a miss for the first 3/4. Okay, coming in at number 8, Friday the 13th, Part 3, or Friday 3D, as some of you probably know it. And look, the 3D is annoying, and it is part of the reason that this is so low on my list. I don't care for Friday Part 3, and the 3D is super annoying. It is. It's hard to watch because you can tell that so much of the movie was emphasized toward just getting those shots, and the acting and the writing of the film really, really suffers. Beyond that, you do have some positive things. It is the movie where we get not only Jason's iconic hockey mask in this movie, but you also get that iconic axe to the head here in this film, where, you know, Jason gets that notch out of his mask that he would wear in every movie from here out, except for Part 5, obviously. We are kind of to the part of the list, though, where things are getting better, though, because honestly, this movie has some amazing kills. Some of my favorite kills in the whole series come out of this movie. Obviously, when the guy gets split in half, that's just amazing. You see him later up in the rafters. That looks great. Obviously, like I said, you get all these iconic imagery for Jason that we would come to know and love him by. And so, you know, there's not just too much to complain here. But I think overall, a sort of rehash story with awful 3D and forgettable characters is enough to land this one at number 8 on the list for me personally. All right, coming in at number 7, we are at Jason X. And I gotta tell you, Jason X is probably one of the most entertaining of the Jason movies. And a lot of you are probably surprised that it made it at least this high on the list. I know 7's not like a super high spot, but we legitimately are out of the ones that I don't enjoy watching. Like, anything below Jason X, I really don't care to revisit. I would rewatch Jason X again because it's so entertaining. There are a handful of things I don't like about Jason X. Most of that stuff comes from KM, the android lady. I don't like her character. I don't really like the acting choices that were made with that character. I hate her fight scene with Jason. I think it looks stupid. And even when she gets killed, she doesn't die because she's an android, but even when Jason punches her head off, that effect looks awful. Like, everything that she does in this movie, it's just the worst parts of the film for me. I'm not necessarily blaming the actress. Some of it is effects, some of it may be directing choices. I don't really know. I just know that I don't like it, and they are all my least favorite parts of this movie. Some of the characters, some of the dialogue back and forth is a little cheesy. It's a little clunky at times, but it's not the worst thing ever. This movie was always going to be a little more campy anyway. It takes place in space, for goodness sakes. I think this movie has awesome kills. I think Jason looks awesome in the movie. I like both costumes. I like both sides of Jason in this film. I like the costume he has when they first get him and they pull him out of the cryo sleep or whatever you want to call it. And I like him all through to the point where he gets blown to bits and put back together with the nanotechnology, and he comes back as Uber Jason, I think they call him. And so, you know, I like every bit of that, honestly. I think this movie is just a good time. I don't have a whole lot to say about Jason X other than it's fun. It's fun to watch because it's just goofy. The reason it's so low on my list is because it's probably the least scary Friday movie, and I do want a little bit of fear in my Friday the 13th movies, and that's just not here. It's campy, it's goofy, it's got action, it's got a lot of really good kills, it's entertaining, and that's why I beat out some of the others. But the lack of fear and some other things in the movie that I just don't like are why it takes a number 7 position here. Coming in at number 6 here, we're at the halfway point now, and I finally come to Friday the 13th Part 1. Now, some of you are going to say that this movie is way too low on this list, and I'm sorry. I could offer a lot of excuses as to why I have it here. I know how iconic this movie is, and I do love this movie. And it may just be a result of how many times I've seen this one. It's certainly the Friday that I've seen the most, and that may be why in my head it's not the most entertaining to me anymore. It's not one that I want to revisit a whole lot. It's not necessarily my favorite Friday. There are a lot of legitimate reasons why I put it here as well. While it does have I would say two iconic kills. There's still a lot of like below camera kills that are bad, and I know the budget for this movie was very, very small, and you could use that as a crutch and say, well, you can't blame the movie, it's so low budget. I mean, of course some of the acting's not going to be the best, of course some of the story's not going to be the best, but I disagree entirely. If you've watched any kind of behind the scenes on the making of this movie, it was just thrown together. I mean, from beginning to end, they were just making it up as they went along, and I think the story reflects that. While there are bright moments in this story, and obviously it's an iconic film for certain reasons, this story is not very good. It's not. And the whole whodunit thing is not done well at all. I just don't think it's good at all. How are you going to have a whodunit type thing with a big reveal at the end and it be a character that you've never even seen before? It doesn't make sense, and it takes all the wind out of the sails for that sort of end-game reveal there. The fight scene is very clunky between the two women at the end of the film. Are there really bright moments? Of course, Friday the 13th Part 1 is full of amazing moments, and it'll always hold a special place in my heart and in the hearts of horror movie fans, Jason fans. If you are a fan of cinema at all, Friday the 13th is going to hold a special place in your heart, and it hurt me to have it at the halfway point at 6. But if you're just talking about my favorite Friday the 13th movies, the ones that I really enjoy watching the most, the ones that I want to sit down and watch on Halloween, it's just not Part 1 anymore unless I'm with someone who's never seen it. Then I would be like, oh, we need to watch Friday the 13th Part 1. You've never seen it? That's crazy. But I would do that with Scream or with Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 or the first Halloween. I would do that with any of the classics. So I don't think that necessarily gives it a special place either. And so for that reason, even though I know many of you are very, very upset, and you're going to be even more upset when you see what's ahead of it if you're not already thinking that far ahead, either way, coming in at number 6 is Friday the 13th Part 1. Coming in at number 5 is Jason Goes to Hell, or as it's also known, The Final Friday. And I know a lot of you are going to be mad for me having this one ahead of Part 1, but you got to understand that this movie is way more entertaining. This movie has amazing kills. It has an amazing dark tone that I love. This movie is chock full of awesome characters. Vicky, who is our main character's best friend, the redhead, she is awesome. She takes care of the baby the whole movie and kicks so much butt. She kicks Jason's butt so hard in that diner, puts up such a good fight before she dies. She's awesome. I love the couple that own the diner, the man and the woman there. They're amazing. I love Deputy Randy and Steven. They seem like such real-life best friends. The way that they argue, the way that they fight, but they clearly care about each other. Their relationship, I think, is done really, really well. I love the atmosphere in this movie. Creighton Duke is so cool. I know he's a weird character, but he's such a cool character, too. And I know Jason isn't really in this movie, but like I said earlier, it's more just icing on the cake. It's not something that necessarily kills a film for me. Is it a negative? I would say, yeah, I would want to see a Jason, but you do get some Jason, even though it's not much. I don't mind the body swapping thing. I hate the slug. I hate how it looks. I wish they could have found a better way to represent Jason's soul at the end of the movie, but it is what it is. There are obviously things in this movie that I hate. There are things in this movie that I just don't like. There are a lot of plot holes in this movie that take me out of the film because they just don't make sense. But if you step away from that and you're just looking for maybe the most entertaining of all the Friday the 13th movies, this is probably it. This would be a great popcorn film to just sit down and watch. It's almost an action movie in a lot of situations. Now, some of those moments, again, they take me out of the film, which is why this one didn't get as high. Though it is super entertaining and I love it, there are a lot of moments that just completely take me out of the film. For example, the car chase scene where they got the rock and roll music. For some reason, it doesn't fit in a Friday the 13th for me. And a lot of the ham-fisted attempts at lore, at canon for the Voorhees family are bad. It was not, look, I understand the ideas and I think some of them could have worked, but they weren't done well here at all. Coming in at number 4, we have Jason Lives Part 6. This is a lot of people's favorite Friday the 13th movie, and I think for good reason. It is another super entertaining attempt at the Friday genre. Also coming after 5, where we didn't have Jason at all, I think people were super hyped to get back into some Jason Voorhees. I think the actor who does Jason in this movie, he was a Marine formerly. I think he brings this almost quick twitch robotic feel to Jason that I really dig. One of the most iconic scenes is after he kills that drunken gravedigger, and that other couple is kind of down the road. He's about to hack up the gravedigger, and he does that turn that just, it's so quick snap robotic, that body turn that he does. Oh, I love that. It looks so good. I think this is legitimately one of the scariest Jasons in all the movies. He really does a good job bringing Jason in as a fearful character in this movie. One of my favorite characters in this movie also is the sheriff. The sheriff is such a good character because he is so real, and I think that's to the credit of this film as well. A lot of these characters feel a lot more realistic than the paint-by-numbers teenagers that we get in so many of these movies. These characters feel so real, and the sheriff and his desire to protect his daughter and to protect his town from this legend and from this kid who comes in and tries to restart something that everyone feels like is dead and gone. I don't blame him for his trepidation and for his unwillingness to believe what he's being told. Even toward the end, he fights so hard against Jason. He puts up such a good fight and trying to save the kids at the camp and everything. I think that's really, really awesome. I love that there are kids at the camp. I love that that is an element in this. It gives a little bit more of a fear because you're like, oh gosh, is Jason going to kill a kid? And so I think there are so many super, super smart decisions made in this movie. It does have lackluster kills a lot of the time. Some of them are very good and memorable. Others are pretty cut up or off screen. I think you get a good 50-50 of good to bad kills in this one. So it's really not that bad. I think there are at least probably 4 or 5 really good kills in the film and a handful of forgettable ones. This one, like number 9, to me just feels like a really good popcorn movie, and is probably the movie that if I was sitting with someone and they had seen all the Friday movies, this very well may be the one that I was like, hey man, you want to watch part 6? Because part 6 is it's just a lot of fun with good characters, and it's the last time that we see Tommy, which I always like Tommy, so I hate to see him go, but I love to see him in this movie. One thing I don't like in this movie, though, Jason's yellow gloves. It's a weird choice. They just stand out, and I don't like them. Coming in at number 3 is another movie that I think is going to surprise a lot of you, and that is Friday the 13th Part 2. I think it's going to surprise you because it's so high on this list. While I don't think Friday has the most memorable kills, and I know we have Baghead Jason here, which is not Hockey Mask Jason, I think the things that you can take away from this movie that you don't like about this movie maybe are very, very small. I think it has some of the best structure of any of the Friday the 13th movies. I think it has some of the best characters of any of the Friday the 13th movies. I think you still have some of the most memorable kills. In particular, the guy in the wheelchair who takes the machete to the face. That's a great, great kill, and I love the stunt of him going down the stairs. Also, I think Jenny is probably one of my favorite final girls of any of the movies at all. I think she's really smart, and I think this movie has a rare, very smart finish to the film that you don't get in a lot of these movies. A lot of these movies just kind of end. They'll just have Jason like chained to the bottom of the lake, or something just randomly thrown in here or there. I think this movie is very smart that it kind of uses the psychology. And I know it's only the second film, and we've seen this repeated down the line. But for it to be the one that comes up with the idea of kind of using the psychology of Jason and his mother against him, I think is brilliant and is a blueprint that you would see repeated on down the line several times. And so I think it's a really smart film. I think it's filmed really well. I think the film looks really good. And even though it's just Baghead Jason, I think this movie builds tension at moments better than almost all of the other ones. The opening scene where you have the main character left over from the first movie, and she's in her house, and she's going through, and she's answering the phone call, and the cat jumps through the window, and then you have the mother's head in the fridge, and then Jason kills her. Like, all of that, the tension that builds in that scene, to me, may be one of my favorite scenes in any of the movies at all. And so there's a lot of good in part 2. I think it's overlooked very often. And I think it's one that you should probably go back and watch again. It's really good. Characters are really good. And the whole structure of the film comes together better than most. It's one of the rare Friday films where it felt like they came in and they knew what they wanted to do and they executed it. All right, only 2 left, and now we're here at the 2 spot, and coming in at number 2 is Friday the 13th, 2009, the reboot. This movie actually came in a lot higher than I thought it would. I thought it would be middle of the way, maybe a little on the high side, maybe hitting somewhere in the 4 range, but really upon a rewatch, I really appreciate this movie a lot. First of all, I think Jason in this movie is terrifying. I think the fact that he runs and that he's like this outdoorsy survivalist, this is the smartest we've ever seen Jason, with the tripwires and the bear traps, the way he hunts people in this movie. Like, I think this is the smartest Jason, the fastest Jason, and the most ferocious Jason that we've ever seen. As much as I love Kane Hodder and the physicality that he brings to the role, this Jason is after you. He's not messing around. He's not walking. He's not stalking you. He is coming to kill you as fast as possible. And I think that is amazing. I actually really like the characters in this movie too. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked them. Now, a lot of these characters are very, very annoying, but they are purposefully annoying. I wish that there was a little bit more diversity. The only characters you really are going to like are Jared Padalecki's character, his sister, and his love interest. Those are going to be the characters that you really like. Everybody else is pretty annoying. I like the Asian dude, Chewie. He's really, really funny, and so he's one of my favorite characters from the movie. And Trent, I love Trent in this movie, and I know that seems odd because Trent is super annoying and he's a douchebag and all that stuff, but the way the actor commits to the role, the way he's constantly like mother henning everyone at his dad's cabin, and he's constantly like, hey, get your feet off the counter, come on, that's an outside game, and all this other stuff that he says, I think it's hilarious. And I love that the actor leaned into it so hard. To me, it comes off super annoying, but borderline genuine for someone who is that big of a douchebag, but that is also in this position. Like, it makes sense. And so I don't think the characters are all bad. There are definitely some forgetful ones. I think Trent's best friend, I don't even remember his name. He's a blonde-haired dude, kind of tall. Him and his girlfriend, I think he has blonde hair, maybe he has brown hair, I don't even know. But him and his girlfriend, they go off to the lake. He's the guy who gets the arrow in the back of his head, and his girlfriend gets stabbed under the dock. 2 awesome kills that I love, but those characters, I don't even know who they were. I have very little idea about their personalities. They're terrible characters. And I think those are the biggest downsides to this movie, is the fact that some of the characters are pretty bad. However, what this movie does so well that I haven't touched on yet is it combines the origin story of Jason. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all in this movie. It does it well. It does it in a timely manner. You have references to the first movie with the opener, which I love. I love that opener. I thought it was really smart. You weren't going to get Betsy Palmer back in the role, and so you cast it, you put it in black and white, you show it's a flashback, you give us the beheading, you give us the voice in Jason's head that springboards us into the future. I think the opener with the first group of teens where Jared's sister is kidnapped. I think her name's Heather. I'm probably wrong about that. When she is kidnapped, I think that opener goes a little longer than it has to, but I do appreciate that you have Baghead Jason reference from part 2. You've got the sleeping bag kill reference, which is Kane Hodder's favorite kill of all time, so they're paying homage there. But it's not all just like super in your face, like, oh, really, remember this, like so many remakes do. It's just smartly used and done a little bit different, but to where you can say, yeah, I remember that one too. And so I think that they masterfully, actually, I think the writing to get those 4 movies, that kind of Jason origin, all thrown together under one roof in one film, is done extraordinarily well in this movie. And that's why I love it so much. It is a lot of fun. It is super entertaining. It is probably one of the most edge-of-your-seat, scariest all-around Friday movies, with this Jason that is so fearsome and just coming at people all the time. He throws the axe and kills that guy. And look, 90% of my favorite kills from Friday movies are when Jason throws something. He'll throw something at somebody and kill them, and I love it every time. I don't care if it's a machete or if it's an axe or what it is, a spear. If he's throwing it and killing somebody and impaling them, you sign me up. I'm a fan of it. But the way he does it in this movie, man, he's running with that axe. Just overhead launches it and it just sticks right in his back. It's beautiful. There's so much good. The fire poker kill to the cop through the door, the way the camera moves around the door, it's really, really good. This movie, people will watch this movie and they'll think these teenagers suck, and then they'll write the movie off. But if you're a fan of the franchise and you recognize all the things that they did here and combine that with really good camera work, really well-written story, put it all together for one movie, I think you've got not only a great homage to those early films, but you've got what should have been a springboard for brand new Jason movies. It should have been, because now if they try to reboot it, what are they going to do? Because all of those great ideas, all of those references you wanted are in this reboot. So either you're going to get a complete rehash of one of the early movies, you're going to get a complete rehash of the reboot, or you're going to get something that is completely different. And there's really not a whole lot of in-between area that this reboot didn't already cover. And so that's why I think this movie's really, really good, and it's my second favorite. Second only to, coming in at number 1, Part 4, The Final Chapter. Part 4 is my absolute favorite. First of all, the guy who plays Jason, I believe his name's Tim White. It may be Tom White. I love this Jason. I love the physicality of this Jason. He's not afraid to run a little bit. He's very, very aggressive. He seems like a Jason who is there to kill everybody. He has kind of that Kane Hodder physicality. He has this edge to him that I really, really enjoy. I love the way he looks. I love the way he's built. I think the teenagers in this movie are the best group of teenagers that we ever get. Crispin Glover is amazing in this movie. I even like Teddy, and I know a lot of people would probably hate on Teddy because he is super, super annoying. And look, I get that. But it's so real. Like, I don't know about you, but I think we all know that guy who uses like the same line, the same moves on women all the time and doesn't really have luck with it, but he's always trying the same move, or he's always making the same stupid joke over and over again, just trying to get somebody to laugh with him, or maybe somebody laughs with him once and so he just keeps making the joke. That's Teddy. To me, it was super realistic because I know people just like him. Pretty much everybody in this movie has their own distinct personality that I really enjoy. I think the structure of the film is great. I think Jason is great. It introduces us to Tommy Jarvis, who I think is a highlight of the entire series. I wish we had Tommy back at some point. I think the kills are solid. I really think that this is the one Jason movie that you point at and it's hard to find a negative. As a matter of fact, as I watched this movie and I wrote down my notes for this movie, I only had one negative, and that negative is Jason misses a throwing kill, and it's the only time that I know of him doing that. He throws a hammer. It sticks in the drywall next to Trish's head. I believe it was Trish, Tommy's older sister. That was the one negative I had of this movie. I was like, Jason missed a throwing kill? He never misses those. And I told you how much I enjoy those. But seriously, I think this movie has not only great tension. I think it's a scary Friday movie at times with great jump scare moments, but I also think it has a lot of humor. I think it's very funny, and it has moments of levity that are very good. Rob's death is really scary. Like, as a kid, someone who is actively being killed and like coming to that realization as they're dying and they're screaming, he's killing me, he's killing me. I don't know, to me, as when I was young, that sent chills down my spine. I hated that. It was very, very scary to me. And so I think this has all of those things. I think it has everything you want, including great stunts, which is one of my favorite parts of Friday movies. I think Friday movies have amazing stunts with deaths, with Jason, and this one has them too. Coming through the window, there are two falls in this movie. One with one of the twins falls onto a car and it just blows the windows out. I think it looks sick. There's another fall in this movie where a girl falls, I want to say, out of the second story of the house, and it's a great fall. There's just everything in this movie from top to finish. The prosthetic work on the kills looks really, really good. When Jason is killed by the machete and he's sliding down, they have that animatronic jaw on him, and it's just kind of working a little bit. I know in hindsight it probably isn't the best looking effect, but I always thought it looked really cool the way he just slid down and his eyes are kind of moving around. All in all, there's not much to complain about with this movie, and if I was to have to sit down and just watch a Friday movie on my own, this would be the one. It's my favorite one. I think it's great. I think it's brilliant. Okay, well, that's it for me today, and that's my ranking of the Friday the 13th movies. This took forever for me to do, to watch all the movies, to write the notes, to try to piece it together. Which one did I like better, this one or this one? Well, I really like this and this one, and it's hard because none of them are really perfect movies. I think 4 is very close to a perfect movie, but for the most part, it's difficult because every movie had parts that I like, except for maybe 8. There was, aside from Julius's head, there really wasn't anything there. But every movie had things that I really liked and things that I really didn't like, and so it became very difficult for me to decide which ones were my favorite. I would really love to hear what your favorites are, what your list is. You don't even have to do a whole list. Give me your top 3 Friday the 13th movies, or whatever you want to do. What did you think about my list? Where did I go wrong? What did I get right? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe and like it and all that good stuff. Go check out my other content. There's all kind of stuff on the channel. I've kept you long enough. This has been One Man's Opinion. Thanks.